Hi students, welcome to lesson number 32, Problems of Social and Human Development. Now let us start with the introduction. Every individual, community and government measures its performance or levels of development in relation to the availability and access to some of the opportunities. Development is freedom which is associated with modernization, leisure, comfort and affluence. In the present context, computerization, industrialization, efficient transport and communication, the network, large education system, advanced and modern medical facilities, safety and security of individuals are considered as the symbols of development. Marginalization, social discrimination and regional disparity etc. show the other phase of development in India. Development is the opportunities as well as neglect and deprivations. There are few areas like the big city centers and other developed enclaves that have all the modern facilities available to a small section of its population. At the other extreme of it, there are large rural areas and the slums in the urban areas that do not have basic amenities like water, education and health infrastructure available to majority of its population. Now, let us observe the objectives. To learn the concept of social and human development, to know the reasons for lagging behind this development, the concept of human and social development. The definition of human development. Human development is a process of enlarging the range of people's choices, increasing their opportunities for education, health care, income and empowerment and covering the full range of human choices from a sound physical environment to economic, social and political freedom. Thus, enlarging the range of people's choices is the most important aspect of human development. People's choices may involve a host of other issues. Living a long and healthy life, may be educated and have access to resources needed for a decent standard of living, including the political freedom guaranteed, human rights and personal self-respect are some of the non-negotiable aspects of the human development. The distribution of the development opportunities among different sections of our society. It is a well established fact that majority of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, landless agriculture laborers and slum dwellers etc. are the most marginalized sections. A large segment of the female population is the worst sufferers among all. It is also equally true that the relative as well as the absolute conditions of the majority of these marginalized sections have worsened with the development happening over the years. Consequently, vast majority of people are compelled to live under abject poverty and subhuman conditions. Another interrelated aspect which exists in society is that the poor are being subjected to three interrelated processes of declining capabilities. 1. Social capabilities due to displacement and weakening social ties, the social capital. 2. The environmental capabilities due to pollution, and the third one is the personal capabilities due to increasing incidence of disease and accidents. This in turn has adverse effects on their quality of life and human development. Based on these above experiences, it can be said that the present development has not been able to address the issues of social injustice. The regional imbalance and environmental degradation, on the other contrary, it is being widely considered as the prime cause of the social distributive injustices. Deterioration in the quality of life and human development, ecological crisis and social unrest, the systematic effort was made to publish the first Human Development Report by United Nations Development Programme UNDP in 1990. According to the Human Development Report 1993, progressive democratization and increasing empowerment of people are seen as the minimum conditions for human development. Social development impacts human development outcomes. It focuses on 5 social development issues like human rights, accountability, gender inequality, age and social exclusion, and their impact on 4 human development sectors: health, sexual and reproductive health, education and water, sanitation and hygiene. Human rights underpin the purpose of human development interventions and provide the guiding structure for measuring outcomes. As such, human rights encompass all aspects of social development. There are, however, 4 distinct social development issues under the human rights umbrella that deserve particular attention. 1. Accountability of government services and interventions helps ensure transparency and fulfillment of obligation in realizing human development. 2. Rights based development is based on development actors' accountability in protecting and delivering those rights. 3. The gender inequality remains a significant driver of poverty and gender inequity. Unequal power relations between men and women affect people's ability to fully access resources, services and institutions and power that lead to human development. This applies at both individual and structural levels. The 4th one, children, adolescents and older people warrant special consideration in the realization of human development. Poor human development at an early age can have a strong impact on the rest of the life. Adolescent and older people have specific vulnerabilities and human development needs which may not be adequately catered for a broadly targeted programs. The 5th one, socially excluded groups experience discrimination and inability to access services and institutions. Ethnic minorities, people living with disabilities and those in isolated rural locations experience individual and structural disadvantages, which restrict their ability to realize all the rights and human development. Now, let us study the definition of social development. Social development refers to many of the non-economic processes and outcomes of development, including but not limited to reduced vulnerability, inclusion, well-being, accountability, people-centered approaches and freedom from violence. It is fundamentally concerned with human rights, formal and informal power relations, inequality and possibilities for building greater equality among individuals and groups within societies. Human development is a process of enlarging people's choices by building human capabilities to lead their lives according to the values. This involves the capability to lead long and healthy lives, to be educated, to access resources and social protection and fair employment. As such, human development is also fundamentally concerned with human rights, including those to life, health and well-being. social development issues can improve and sustain human development and reduce individual and community vulnerability. Poverty, gender inequality, social exclusion and geographic location can all affect a person's ability to realize their right to a decent standard of living. Moreover, individuals and groups may face multiple barriers to realizing their rights. These barriers can negatively reinforce each other. For example, poor women living in rural areas or girls and women living with disabilities are likely to face greater barriers than most women living in better off urban settings. Challenges to human development can change throughout a person's life and especially at a particular period. For example, the early years of life, the transition from school to work and from work to retirement are periods when human development challenges are high. Realizing rights to human development involves understanding and addressing the social drivers of development. Without doing so, gains made will be undermined. The new Sustainable Development Goals SDGs involve moving from a technical approach for increasing human development towards equity or inclusion approach, that is working to increase equity, and shift from relations can be difficult to put into practice. Cultural norms are difficult to change and donors can be reluctant to engage with an overtly political approach. Now, let us understand the pathways that generate inequities and through which they can be addressed. 1. The inequities are greater for severity of illness than for occurrence of illness, and the extent of inequities is greater at younger ages. Health services can contribute to reductions in inequity, particularly through primary care services. However, this contribution depends on the type of health service, attention to the type and orientation of the health services system, and not just simply the presence of health services. Failure to recognize the existence of health problems associated with inequity may be more important than failing to intervene when the problem is recognized. Efforts to improve average health are generally associated with increasing inequities, because new and effective interventions often reach the more advantaged. The Human Development Report is a separate self-dependent yearly report which is promulgated by the Human Development Report Office of the United Nations Development Programme and is the result of a group of selectively dedicated team of specialized learners. Development practitioners and members of the Human Development Office UNDP. The Human Development Index HDI is a statistical index which is primarily formed of 3 factors. 1. The life expectancy, education quotient and indicators of per capita income, which helps in ranking countries into different tiers of human development. The HDI value basically is calculated as the average of life expectancy at birth, gross national income per capita and mean and expected years of schooling to measure education level of a country. HDI categorizes countries into 4 levels of low, medium, high and very high, where the low HDI level includes countries that are the least developed and the very high HDI level includes the most developed countries. The key dimensions of human development are measured using 4 different metrics that defines a long and healthy life using the data entry on life expectancy at birth. Assessing access to knowledge and rise of education using data available on expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling and having a decent standard of living, which is measured using per capita income. Life expectancy at birth is the average number of years that a newborn is expected to live in a light of current mortality level of a population. It summarizes the mortality trend over all age groups as the value of one additional year of anyone's life is the reduction in per capita income, which is mandate to keep the HDI constant. Expected years of schooling identifies the age at which a child enters the school, and the mean year of schooling helps in calculating the knowledge attained and the overall education level. GI per capita income reflects average income of a nation and can analyze a lot about a country's policy choices. This aims at developing people's abilities and giving them a chance to use them, create the awareness of right condition for human development, such as environmental sustainability or equality between men and women, achievements in reproductive health, empowerment and economic activity. India is progressing continuously in terms of its HDI value. Indian government has established an extensive social welfare system, programs for children, which includes the supplementary nutrition for expectant mothers and for children under 7 years of age, immunization and health programs, vacation camps for low income families and training for adolescents. There are also services for the blind, the deaf, mentally retarded and orthopedically handicapped. Programs for women include welfare grants, women's adult education and working women hostels. Special measures are aimed at rehabilitating the juvenile delinquents, prostitutes and convicts. Begging in public places is forbidden by law in most states and localities. Other social welfare programs cover displaced persons, family planning and maternity care, rural community and development, emergency relief programs for drought, food, flood, earthquakes and other disasters, untouchability and underdevelopment of tribal people. The program for old age, disability and death benefits are covered by a provident fund with deposit linked insurance for industrial workers in 177 categories. The system is partially funded by the insured persons and employers, with a small pension scheme subsidized by the government. There is social insurance system covering sickness and maternity as well as the work injury. The law requires employers to pay a severance identity of 15 days pay for each year of employment. Although the law prohibits discrimination in the workplace, women are paid less than men in both rural and urban areas. Discrimination exists in access to employment, the credit and family and property law. Wife murder, usually referred to as dowry deaths, is still evident. Domestic violence is commonplace and more than half of women surveyed believed it as justifiable and normal part of married life. Not only does the male population exceed that of female, but India is also one of the few countries where men on the average live longer than women. To explain this anomaly, it has been suggested that daughters are more likely to be malnourished and to be provided with the fewer healthcare services. Female infanticide and foeticide is a growing problem in a society that values sons over daughters. It is estimated there are nearly 5 lakh children living and working on the streets. child prostitution is widespread. Despite its illegality, child marriages are still arranged in many parts of India. The major areas of social development are poverty, unemployment, health, education, urban governance, women, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, communal relations and decentralization. The second part of the report deals with conditions of the children in India. In the end, the report provides a ranking of the states in terms of social development index. Demographic parameters, healthcare indicators, basic amenity indicators like Pakka house, safe drinking water, toilet facility, electricity, education attainment indicators, unemployment and poverty indicators, and social deprivation related indicators such as literacy of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and females in relation to total, the ratio of consumption of Muslims to total, the ratio of female unemployment to total and the child sex ratio. By aggregating these 6 components, a social development index is constructed at 2 points of time in 1991 and 2001 for 20 large states and 9 small states, while the index is given for both rural and urban areas in large states. Only a combined rural and urban index is given for the smaller states. The UNDP uses a range equalization method for constructing the Human Development Index, so that they have scale free values varying between 0 and 1. This report also uses a similar method for computing SDI. Turning to major areas of social development, the analysis of poverty and unemployment shows that they are concentrated both geographically and in terms of social categories. The rural poor are being concentrated in Bihar, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, and the urban poor are concentrated in Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, poverty is being concentrated among agricultural labourers, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Poverty alleviation strategies adopted in the last 5 decades can be classified into 4 broad groups: the institutional reforms, empowerment of the poor, development of resource deficient areas and special employment programs and safety nets. The study advocates that improving agricultural growth in the semi-arid regions is important in order to meet the challenge of poverty and unemployment. It also argues that poverty alleviation programs must go beyond the minimalist approach of safety nets, and the scheme can be made more effective through decentralization. In the health sector, there are significant inequalities in expenditures across classes, the regions and gender. A review of policies and programs shows that the well-known fact of deterioration in the quality of services in public healthcare systems. The poor cannot afford the private health systems because of high cost. Reviving healthcare deliveries requires not only higher expenditures, but improvements in management and technical innovations. There is a great expectation on initiatives like the rural health missions, which can improve the health delivery systems in the country. In education, significant achievements have been made in terms of the number of schools, teachers, students and skilled manpower through governmental programs. The failure to universalize elementary education, wide disparities across gender regions and social groups are the major failures in this sector. Poverty, the high cost of good education, low quality of education is the major factors at the household level for high dropout rates among the poor. The study on education argues that the government must play a major role in providing quality education to all in order to make education a tool for social change. Similar to health and education, wide disparities can be seen in drinking water and sanitation in both rural and urban areas. The problem of exclusion is most visible if we look at the social and economic development of marginalized groups such as the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. There have been many programs and legal provisions, and yet they fail to bring about a significant improvements in the social and economic conditions of the marginalized social groups. The necessary changes in the policies are needed in order to enhance access to productive assets including land, employment opportunities, education and health, and eliminate discrimination for ensuring fair participation in the public and private sectors. The government has proposed extending reservations for other backward communities in the central educational institutions and also job quotas for marginalized sections in the private sectors. This type of affirmative actions is important for a fair participation of socially disadvantaged groups. In order to have more sustainable socially inclusive policies, inequalities in the opportunities in employment, health and education have to be removed. In the case of women, the dominance of Hindu patriarchal ideology which was prevalent in the colonial period continued even in the post-independence period. Although we have a constitutional commitment to equality and changes in feminine discourses for equality of women, it has had only a limited impact in reducing disparity and discrimination of women. The data for men and women show that exclusion is taking place in social, cultural and economic spheres in rural and urban areas across the states, as well as among the SCs and STs. The special theme identified for this report is the child. An overview on child development shows that there has been limited success in improving health, nutrition and educational status of children since independence. Discrimination against the girl child is reflected in gender differential death rates, the dropout rates, malnutrition and most importantly the foeticides. Although there has been significant progress in quantities regarding the school education, the disparity in quality of schooling facilities is very high. The quality of education in government schools deteriorated as the elite and the rich and the middle class relied more on private schools and tuitions. The study also indicates that the special problems of several categories of disadvantaged children are not being addressed. These categories include children of working mothers in need of daycare or creche facilities and street children, delinquent children, sexually abused children, children who are victims of trafficking, children of sex workers, abandoned and destitute children with AIDS and AIDS orphans, children affected by drugs, child beggars and other similarly placed children in difficult circumstances. On child labor, it is argued that the official claim of a decline in child labor is a myth, as there are large sections of nowhere children, neither in the labor force nor in the schools. In many states, it is also emphasized that there should not be a distinction between hazardous and non-hazardous activities regarding child labor. The bottom line is that in keeping with the child rights perspective, 86th Amendment to Constitution, every child is entitled to free and universal education. To conclude, the social development report has addressed the issue of exclusion and social backwardness. Social exclusion of regions, social and marginal groups, women, minorities and children are taking place. Fortunately, these issues of social exclusion are being discussed by politicians, bureaucrats and the policy makers and civil society. The social development situation should be monitored continuously at a disaggregate level in order to improve social consciousness, changes in social attitudes and to develop a consensus for appropriate policy actions. The agenda of social development has to be given highest priority in order to reduce exclusion, social tensions, inequality and improve overall economic development. To sum up the lesson, let us know what is social development. Social development refers to many of the non-economic processes and outcomes of development, including but not limited to reduced vulnerability, inclusion, well-being, accountability, people-centered approaches and freedom from violence. Human development is a process of enlarging the range of people's choices, increasing their opportunities for education, healthcare, income and empowerment and covering the full range of human choices from a sound physical environment to economic, social and political freedom. In the present context, computerization, industrialization, efficient transport and communication network, large education system, advanced and modern medical facilities, safety and security of individuals are considered as the symbols of development. Marginalization, social discrimination and regional disparity etc. show the other phase of development. The Human Development Report is a separate self-dependent yearly report which is promulgated by the Human Development Report Office of the United Nations Development, which is a program and is the result of a group of selectively dedicated team of specialized learners and development practitioners and members of Human Development Office of UNDP. The Human Development Index is a statistical index which is primarily formed of three factors: life expectancy, education quotient and indicators of per capita income, which helps in ranking countries into different tiers of human development. Thank you.